Hey y'all! So I'm back with another video, long overdue from just a vlogging standpoint, long overdue, and then also maybe a season overdue, because this one's going to be talking about traveling and food anxiety. And I'm making this video because I've had a lot of clients in the past few weeks talk about traveling or going on vacation and just having kind of food anxiety and this guilt and not really knowing how to handle it. And I realize that that's because it's summer and a lot of people travel during the summer, so I'm probably making this a few months too late, but in any case, here's the video. And since it's YouTube, it'll last forever, right? That's kind of my my excuse. But anyway, so I really wanted to kind of go over this because, like I said, it's something that I've dealt with a lot as a coach with my clients and also something with myself. I mean, I travel a lot now, so I've had to get pretty good at it. But before that, you know, it definitely caused me anxiety. I'm not like immune to any of that kind of stuff. Like most of the things I talk about, I've dealt with them too. So I can bring kind of that personal perspective. And then also hopefully these tips can be helpful and just kind of, you know, like a checklist for you if you are traveling or going out of town or anything like that. First, I want to preface this with my number one priority as a coach is to instill flexibility in all of my clients. And that means long-term flexibility, and that means flexibility with all things, not just flexible dieting, tracking your macros. This means you can eat out anywhere, at any time, at any point, and get anything and not, you know, have these anxieties over it. And again, this is a skill. This takes time to develop. It didn't come overnight for me, and it definitely won't unless you travel quite frequently, right? A lot of people think that, you know, they have to make everything and I'm gonna track it down to the gram and I'm gonna live in this little vacuum of my life. And that's not the reality, right? I mean, and I'm, again, guilty of this too, right? Very type A, very perfectionist, like, okay, I'm gonna start today on Monday and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that and then I'm gonna do this for this many weeks and it's gonna be perfect and then one little thing will happen and then it just goes crazy, right? If you relate to this, I'm sure you're like, oh my gosh, Lauren is just speaking to me right now. And like I said, trust me, this totally has been me very, very many times in the past, and only until I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone. And pushing out of my comfort zone means that I'm failing too, right? Pushing out of my comfort zone and I've either overeaten or had food anxiety or freaked out or overcompensated, whatever. I've done all these things, I failed a whole bunch of times, and then eventually I got better. So it's a skill to develop. Keep that in mind. That's kind of the overarching theme, is this will take time, but it is really, really important to instill this kind of long-term flexibility in your diet for long-term results. So there's a few things that I would suggest checking on when you are traveling. Now, I would define traveling as any time that's out of your house, out of your kitchen, out of your little routine. So right now I'm actually at my grandma's house, which is why I'm not in my kitchen. I'm in her office, and I'm helping take care of her. My parents are gone this week. And so, you know, it's not like I'm at a full house. I'm at a house with a full kitchen. I'm very comfortable. I grew up around this area. So it's not like I feel like I'm traveling like anything fancy by any means, but I'm out of my house and I'm out of my routine completely, right? So those are things to consider. It's not always like, oh, I'm backpacking trip in Europe, that means I'm traveling. It could be anything that is out of like your norm. So first things first, when you are traveling, if you are in a hotel, check if there is a fridge and if there is a microwave either in your room or on the premise. Sometimes you have to ask for them and sometimes they say like, no, there was a zero fridge microwave policy. So that's something to check. If you're staying in a house, or obviously if you're staying in a house, then you know you have a kitchen. But if you're at like an Airbnb, which is a lot of times if you get like the condos or the townhouses type thing, see if they have a kitchen. Usually they do, and usually they're pretty stocked with, I mean, not everything you need, but like pots and pans and a full-size fridge and things like that. Now, if you are, that's first thing. If you want to cook, you want to make your food, you want to know kind of everything. Now, also it's important to kind of look at these food services, right? So a lot of states have their own, like in the area, like here, my grandma actually orders fuel food, I write it down, fuel food. And I believe they're in West Palm, but I know they deliver, I think, from like West Palm to like all of like South Florida. She gets it, she really, really likes it, and she gets it so she doesn't have to like cook dinner. So she has it come delivered, and then I ordered a few meals too, and everything I've had has been delicious. So if you are in South Florida, I would definitely check them out. Anytime that I've traveled kind of across the country, I've used Icon Meals because they ship everywhere in the US to my knowledge, and basically they freeze everything, they overnight it, and then you get it and it's in this big box and it's frozen. So if you are traveling somewhere maybe for like 2 days, I think you'd be good without a fridge just because it does have to thaw. But after that, I'd be kind of like, a little hesitant. So if you have somewhere that doesn't have a fridge, I'd be a little bit hesitant to order food like that. But you know, that's always an option too, right? And anything I've ordered from Icon has been delicious also. I usually get more of like the plain stuff. That's kind of what I like. And they even have it where you can order just like proteins by the pound. I know the Fuel Foods does that too. So like you'll just order like, you know, chicken and steak or, you know, shrimp or fish, you know, whatever. And you can just order it in bulk. And that way, you know, you have some food. And then you can also check out the local stores. So if you have either a car or you can get an Uber or something to the grocery store and then stock up on a few things. So you know, okay, at least if I have a kitchen at this place that I'm staying at, you know, I'm gonna get stuff to make breakfast. I'm gonna get, you know, a loaf of bread and some eggs and maybe some fruit and then, you know, like an avocado, and I'm good to go, right? If that's what you eat for breakfast. That's clearly what I eat for breakfast, so that's why I gravitate towards those things. So you can always do that too. So you know, okay, for sure I have either the breakfast covered or, you know, whatever. The thing that I always bring, even if I'm gonna wing it while I'm traveling, I always bring protein powders and I always bring Quest bars because I know that I can mix protein powder with water or iced coffee, which are both delicious options. And then I always know that I can have a Quest bar, which is obviously protein, good fiber, and it's something that kind of just like keeps me on track. They taste good, clearly, and I really like the ingredients. I'm big on ingredients. So you can choose any protein bar that you like, but for me, that protein bar is Quest, and I always bring those two things because no matter where, you can always stop and get a water, and you can always stop and get a coffee, and you can put your protein powder in there. So at least you have protein, and that's kind of the hardest macro, I think, to stay on track with when you're traveling, because, you know, everything else is pretty plentiful, particularly carbs and fats are kind of everywhere. So it's a little bit harder to get protein unless you want to spend like a gazillion dollars on each meal. So I always bring protein powder and Quest bars at minimum. The other thing to check when you are traveling is to see where you're going, right? So it's really big difference, say you're going somewhere like in the South versus somewhere maybe out West. So perfect example, I was in New Orleans for the NSCA conference, and then I went out West to LA and Vegas for USA's. Completely different food situations. I didn't bring anything besides Quest bars and protein powder to LA and Vegas and was totally fine. And they have very, very healthy options. I mean, places like Protein House exist in Las Vegas, right? When I went to Louisiana, it was a little bit harder. Now, I still could get good options. You know, fish is pretty plentiful there, just seafood in general. And, you know, you can always order like a salad or something and veggies, but it's definitely harder. You know, healthy options aren't as abundant. So it's important to know kind of where you're going. If you're going somewhere that has a lot of options, if anyone ever comes to Florida, there's a lot of healthy choices down here too. But that's just something to consider, right? You know where you're going. Maybe kind of, if you don't really know where you're going, kind of look it up. If you're traveling internationally, of course, this kind of changes a lot. Food labels are different. The way they cook is different. If you go somewhere, you know, like I've been to Australia, and Australia had, you know, pretty macro friendly food, really fresh food, really single ingredient food. Maybe you go to France and there's maybe things are cooked a little bit more densely, right? Portions are usually in control though, but you have to know where you're going, right? Know how things are cooked. And if you are international and there's like a language barrier, that could be a little bit difficult. But just do your research where you're going, and that will definitely reduce your food anxiety too, knowing, okay, I'm gonna eat here and there's gonna be all these options, or I'm gonna eat here and this is gonna be a little bit harder, so maybe I should order, you know, some protein options, some protein pounds, pounds of protein, not protein, pounds of protein from Icon Meals or something, or really stock up on, like, I'm gonna bring a ton of protein powder with me, you know, things like that. So you just know, and that will definitely reduce anxiety also. So I've talked about all these tips on kind of how I would travel and how I would suggest doing things, but the biggest thing is you have to keep all this in context, right? If you're somebody who's a few weeks out from a show, or you're in an active fat loss phase, or you're maybe a few weeks post-show, like just, you know, initially post-show, you should probably be a little bit more careful then, right? Not probably, you should be more careful then, right? If you're deep into an off season, or you're in a maintenance phase and you're having food anxiety about eating one meal out that you couldn't track yourself, you need to take a step back and say, okay, why am I worried about this? You need to have a conversation either with yourself or your coach or someone that's close with you, because you really should be able to eat out and estimate and just kind of let it go at that point. And you know, everyone is different. I get it. You know, some people are die hard, you know, I gotta track every day, and other people are a little bit more intuitive. Other people are just kind of in the middle. I think I fall in the middle, you know, in the off season, definitely way more intuitive than tracking. If I'm home, I'll still weigh a lot of stuff, but when I travel, you know, or I eat out, you know, I either make choices that I know, okay, this is gonna fit within this, or I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make this choice so that I can eat this later, or, you know, vice versa. And you really need to be able to mentally take a step back and go, why am I freaking out about this? Because that's really gonna get to the root of the problem. Life is more than a food scale and 3 numbers, right? And I kind of talk about this a lot, but you know, living your life. And even on prep, you can still live your life. You can still not isolate yourself. Is it harder? Yeah, it's way harder to say, okay, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna eat this and I'm only gonna eat whatever, because you know, even if your friends know or your family knows, they're gonna be like, oh, do you want this? Or like, oh, can you have this? Or, oh wait, you can't have that, right? That's like the worst. I'm like, okay, I can, but I can't. And then it's just like a whole, you know, I can have it, but I'm not going to because it's not going to help me with my goals and I maybe can't track it. But you know what I'm talking about, right? It's a lot harder to kind of do that than to just say, no, I'm just gonna, you know, prep my meals, be at home and, you know, do my cardio and do everything. So this all is a skill to develop. But what I don't like seeing, or what I don't want to see, is when people have all these food anxieties when they travel and they are in an off season or they are in a maintenance phase. And it's super normal. I used to be like that too. I used to go, you know, wildly fluctuate on stuff and not really know how to handle it and use that as an excuse. Like, oh, you know, it's off of my schedule, so I'm just gonna kind of whatever. And like I said, I've been through this too. So I know what it feels like, and I know what having everything in check, like, okay, every day is good. Oh, and then one little thing happens and you're like, and then you're like, oh, okay, I gotta come back here. And then you're like, and then, so trust me, I know. But like I said, I'll repeat this over and over and over again. Life is more than 3 little numbers and a food scale, okay? So hopefully these tips have been helpful as far as how to kind of plan traveling, plan eating out. You know, but really I want to promote the idea of long-term flexibility and being able to eat out anywhere at any time and not have food anxiety. And don't think this will happen tomorrow. Don't think this will happen your first trip you do it, but it can happen if you push yourself out of your comfort zone. You will fail. You will go overboard. You will overeat. You will undereat. You will get upset. You will have anxiety. But over time, if you keep pushing it like anything, you will grow and evolve. And then you're going to be like, wow, okay, I can take a step back and realize that this is just food, these are just numbers, and I can enjoy myself, stick to my goals, keep making progress. So hopefully this wasn't too late, and hopefully some of y'all are still gonna go on some vacations or trips away and can use these tips. Thanks for watching.